Presbyterian Church. May I help you?
Yeah, may I speak to the preacher or the pastor?
That's who you got.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
Hey, what's up?
I was taking a look in the book of Joshua, chapter 10, verse 12 through 13.
Yeah?
And the story gives a very unusual, it's a very unusual story. It says that God made it to where the sun froze in the sky so Joshua could do his fighting. It also says, I believe, that it froze the moon as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you had a course in high school physics, you know that doesn't make sense.
It is unusual for me, sir, and that's why I was calling to...
Believe me, I think it's a metaphor, but that doesn't mean, you know, there are some people that when they take the scripture stories, they see them that is exactly what happened, you know, that. But I think many times it can be understood metaphorically. But that what is the lesson? What's the point of the story? Is the point of the story that the moon stopped and the sun froze in the sky, or is the point that God saw Joshua through the battle? And it seems that you know, I really just can't answer your question directly. I would interpret it as a metaphor more than as a statement of fact.
Well,
the actual sun stopped, because essentially I've grown up in a universe where that sort of thing is not possible.
If you don't mind, may I ask you another question?
Sure.
I've been talking to a friend of mine. His name is John Marcus, and he's really, really into this whole thing of expanding universes and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he claims that the Earth is 6,000 years old.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time with that. I'm
yeah, you pick up a rock and you know that. Yeah. Yeah. See, that again, there are people that take the Bible absolutely literally. And they have counted up the generations going, you know, in the biblical tradition, counted up the generations, and have come to a number like 4,000 BC. And so your friend's statement that the Earth is 6,000 years follows from that presupposition. But we don't know. For one thing is we're talking about human history. Another thing is we don't know what a generation is in terms of time. They weren't scientifically inclined.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't laugh at that, but I just say that's the theory of those that have a literalistic perspective based on research that some Bible scholars have done, and they've come up with that number. Now there are many other Bible scholars that see that as essentially that what we're interested in is the history of humankind.
Yeah.
And there's no reference of how long a day is, for instance, when it talks about God created the heavens, the earth, and then God created the animals and the vegetables and everything. You're given it as a day. Well, what was a day? So.
Yeah.
I think you're not going to convince him. You're not going to convince him that the geology and the physics of a situation are impossible, and therefore, you know, the scientific, or what you might say the modern perspective is right, because the modern perspective doesn't fall back on story and metaphor where the biblical material does. These are ancient stories.
Sir, if you don't mind me asking, if you don't mind and stuff, how long have you been a preacher?
40 years.
40 years. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. And I have in my family we've had these debates, and I've enjoyed them.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. What I have to say is to respectfully have a different perspective on certain things, and because I don't try to defend that any scientific interpretation of the Bible is literally true, or any religious understanding of science is necessarily true, because it's being pushed both ways.
Well, sir, I appreciate your help. I'm going to talk to my friend, though. And
okay, well, and you don't need to say that you talked to a preacher, been a preacher for 45 years, and he thinks that stuff is a metaphor, but I'm willing to say that, okay?
I appreciate it.
Thanks for calling.
You mind if I call you later?
Oh, not at all.
All right, thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.